It was the listening that I did in those moments that makes me think of story listening as a superpower today. Because I learned from them what they needed from me. It wasn't me, the salesperson, telling them what I had and how it would help them. I first needed to seek to understand. One thing that's been constant is that I spend more time listening. I build stories working with the people I want to tell stories to. Story listening is what I do to understand. Story building is what I do to collaborate and co-create stories. And then the most important and perhaps the hardest part is story doing. After I listen and I build and I tell, I have to live the story that I've told. And if I've told a story about my amazing business and the values that we have of always over-delivering and treating our customers well, the first time that I don't do that, bad news travels a heck of a lot faster than good news. And people say, you know, he tells a great story, but in real life, doesn't behave that way at all. Story doing is where corporate culture comes from. The mouse, the icons on the screen, the artificial intelligence that we're also armored with today was also developed with Xerox, and the Department of Defense invested heavily in many of the technologies that we know and love today. And I had the pleasure and the honor to be part of the teams that we called ourselves Tiger Teams at the day, because we were a small band of men and women that had the honor of selling these amazing technologies that none of us really understood because they were so amazing and so new. But we learned, and again, it was learning from our customers, because we had these things and we would show up with a book that contained inside all of the amazing things that these tools could do. And we would present them and draw on whiteboards, and we would talk about them, and people would say, that's amazing, we could. What if we? So it was an era where all the possibilities were before us. And I think, I know those moments were shaping me because I had the magic in my hand. I was the representative that was bringing this amazing technology to the world. The people in the boardroom said, what if? Oh, wow, we could. How about? And it was me listening to their imagination of what they could do with this thing that seemed to be this enchanted tool. You use a mouse, you point at icons, you do this, you can do that, and you can communicate with somebody halfway around the world. Wow, that's amazing. It was the listening that I did in those moments that makes me think of story listening as a superpower today. Because I learned from them what they needed from me. It wasn't me, the salesperson, telling them what I had and how it would help them. I first needed to seek to understand. And we can only accomplish that by listening well. And that's my journey from New Jersey to California to Silicon Valley, working with some of the amazing technologies of the day that inform how I see technology today, because I've been seeing it for several decades now. But one thing that's been constant is that I spend more time listening, in spite of my ability to just talk a mile a minute. I know that listening is my superpower. And let me say it differently. Curiosity and my interest in understanding what other people think and feel and believe is my superpower. And listening to them is how I gain the knowledge about them so I can serve them better.
That is the essence of the entire process, which is the story. Now today, of course, we are talking about the 4 parts to your storytelling, which I'm really looking up to understand even better. Now, can you list them out for me? Just list them out for me. Okay. A kind of a small summary of each. Then we're going to go into each of them one after the other. Please go ahead.
Okay. There are 4 parts. I think of story as like a multifaceted diamond, but the largest facets of the diamond that shine the brightest are story listening, which is me seeking to understand. Story building is the interesting part, because story building means that I'm not the storyteller necessarily. I'm not the storyteller, I'm the story builder. But I don't build stories alone. I build stories working with the people I want to tell stories to. If I have 1,000 ideal customers, prospects, and I define them well, then I identify 4 or 5 or 6 of them that I can say, I've got a product and I want to tell you the story. And I tell them the story. And I say, what do you think? And they say, well, that's a great story, but I would tell it this way. Now I'm collaborating with my ideal client avatar to tell the story of my product that I'm going to ultimately tell to other people just like them. Story listening is what I do to understand. Story building is what I do to collaborate and co-create stories. Storytelling, for me, is the easy part, because if I collaborated well with the ideal client avatar that I want to reach, then telling is just what channels my ideal client avatar is listening on. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on... And you just understand your client to know where they're looking for the answers that they seek. And then after listening and building, you go there and you promote your stories there. And that for me is the telling part. And then the most important and perhaps the hardest part is story doing. After I listen and I build and I tell, I have to live the story that I've told. And if I've told a story about my amazing business and the values that we have of always over-delivering and treating our customers well, the first time that I don't do that, bad news travels a heck of a lot faster than good news. And people say, he tells a great story, but in real life, doesn't behave that way at all. He doesn't do the stories that he tells. So story doing is where corporate culture comes from. Story doing is where your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Right. So story doing makes sure that the brand that you're building has all the honor and garners all the respect that you seek by doing the stories you tell well.
That is really incredible, the way you break it down. Now, I am imagining that the person that is listening to us is a business person who wants to understand how to really explore this 4 facets of story in their business. But before we go into the detail of each of them, would you like to explain to me how you came up with this idea? Why was it important for you to break it down the way you did?
I'd like to say that I am amazing, the most brilliant person on the planet, right? But I know that there's no new ideas out there. There's no new ideas out there. The great American author, James Baldwin, the great Nigerian author, Chinua Achebe. I've learned so much from those authors about life and meaning. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to story. Here in the United States, Native Americans say, those who tell the stories rule society. Like, well, if they said that hundreds of years ago, I can say it today, but I just say it using my words. So I think there's really no new ideas in this notion of listening. Diogenes is the crazy Greek Stoic who lived in a barrel for a while, but we have his writings. And lived in a barrel, and he had a lantern that he would, when he was not living in the barrel, he took a lantern and moved through the cities in Greece, and he said, "Is there an honest man anywhere?" He was a little crazy, but he also is well documented that he had some wise words. One of the wise things that he said is that we have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them accordingly. In other words, see and hear and speak less. So if you take all of the things that we learn about the lessons that have been shared with us by the thinkers and thought leaders and influences throughout history, and we aggregate them, that's all I've done. It's me pulling together the things that work for me, the things that I believe are the way I'd like to solve problems for people. And thinking of myself as a deep thinker, I like working with people that are not looking for the silver bullet. Silver bullet being, let me say it differently. I acknowledge we all have a 9-second attention span. Right now, I've got 3 screens in front of me. Come on, really? Do I need that much information? Well, but I have them here because that's the way we operate. We move from thing to thing to thing very quickly. But I acknowledge that my ideal client is someone that wants to really deeply understand why things work. And as such, because I'm wired that way, I want to understand the meaning of things. And my ideal client wants to understand the meaning of things and not looking for the 9-second answer